Hello students, welcome to All Force e-learning channel. This is K. Nageshwar Rao, your physics faculty. Today we are about to deal with session number 57, first year NEET. The chapter name is Laws of Motion. In the previous session we have discussed about impulse and its applications were discussed, and we have solved two problems connected with impulse. So in the present session, I'll deal with Newton's third law of motion and the law of conservation of linear momentum. I'm telling you once again guys, whatever topics that we have been discussing, concept of force or Newton's first law, second law, third law, change in momentum, linear momentum, conservation of these things were deleted. Officially they were deleted, but still these concepts are having connection with the rest of other chapters. So it's always suggestible to go through these concepts. Okay, so here and there, wherever there is a possibility of going in a detailed way, we will be going, and almost all applications connected with these concepts, whether it is a linear momentum or whether it is second law of motion or it is conservation of linear momentum, we'll try to cover most of the applications. Okay, so that we'll have a knowledge of various models in physics, and this helps us in understanding few other concepts, whether concepts of system of particles and rotational motion or any other chapter. We can understand those concepts very easily if we are having sufficient knowledge of concepts connected with this laws of motion. Okay, so let us continue with Newton's third law of motion. Okay, now let us deal with this Newton's third law of motion. Before we proceed further with the Newton's third law of motion, let us try to understand the rest of the laws, whatever laws were completed so far. In this laws of motion chapter only, we have started talking about force. Before that, either it is one-dimensional motion or two-dimensional motion, our primary concern was never been force. We have been always watching what is the velocity of the body, what is the acceleration of the body, what is the displacement of the body. All these kinds of parameters are monitored, isn't it? So we haven't explored force factor. Force parameter was not monitored. So in this chapter, whether it is first law or a second law or a third law or any other further connected points, further connected concepts with these laws, in all these things, we most of the times deal with force only. For example, in Newton's first law of motion, what was said? It was said that unless or otherwise the body is acted upon by some external force, it doesn't change its state of motion. Whether it is at rest position or in a state of uniform motion, its state of motion is not going to change unless or otherwise it is acted upon by some net force, isn't it? So that's where first law has introduced the concept of force. It has introduced the concept of force, isn't it? So here we don't know how to measure the force. How to measure the force? In the first law, it was not discussed at all. But in the second law, there is a relation established between force, mass, and acceleration, F equal to ma. So that equation is something that facilitates measurement of force, net force acting on a body, isn't it? So first law is connected with the force. It has introduced force. Second law, it has established a relation between force, mass, and acceleration. So providing a way to measure the force, net force acting on the body. And the third law is something that gives us information about origin of force. Origin of force. Yes. See, if I'm talking about external force, from where it will act? If I'm talking about external force acting on a body, from where it will act? It will act from some other body, isn't it? From some other body. So here, third law actually gives us information about origin of force. Which body is exerting force on which body? Okay, so origin of force, from where the force is originating, the one which is acting on a given body. If there is a body, and if you say that some external force is acting on that body, from where? Some other body has to exert, isn't it? So it gives us information about origin of the force. First law has introduced force, introduced the concept of force, and the second law has given a way to measure the net force acting on the body. It has established a relation between force, mass, and acceleration. Third law gives us information about origin of force. So that's how all these three laws are connected with the force. Okay, let us discuss about this third law a little bit more before we go to the statement. Okay, I'm going to pick up one or two examples. Let us say if you take example of a spring, something like this. Let us say there is a rigid support and a spring is hung like this. And for example, with the hand, if you exert a force equal to F in the downward direction, what happens? Equally, same amount of force will act in the opposite direction, in the upward direction. When you are trying to deform the spring, what the spring does, the natural tendency of the spring is it will try to regain its original configuration. It will try to go back to its original position. In this attempt, what it does, it actually exerts a force in the upward direction, in a direction opposite to the force that you have applied. Okay? Isn't it? So, if you are exerting a force F, to counter that, there will be another force acting in the upward direction. Isn't it? If you are, for example, if you are keeping a block of mass on the ground, something like this, let us say its mass is F, its weight will act on the ground, okay, which is equal to mg, and this ground also exerts a force F in the upward direction equal to this mg, If you observe these two situations, you cannot simply imagine a single force F or a single force this F. If you are creating this force, if you are exerting this force, by default what is happening? Another force is acting to counter this force. Here the weight of the body is acting on the ground. Because of that, what is happening? Another counter force is acting on the block of mass by the ground. So with this understanding, with this observation, with this analysis, what we can conclude? We can conclude that force never exists in single form. It always exists in pairs. And this third law is connected with such kind of pairs. Let me give you the statement. According to Newton's third law, for every action there is an equivalent and opposite reaction. Action, reaction, both are forces only. Action, reaction. Okay, so for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, let me write the statement here. Let me give you the statement. According to third law, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Before I go with this statement further, I would like to discuss one more point. For example, there is a block of mass here on the surface. Okay, one person is here and he is exerting some force on this block, along this direction. Another person is also exerting force in this direction. So both are exerting same amount of force, but in the opposite direction. This person is exerting a force equal to, let us say, 2 newtons. This person is exerting a force equal to 2 newtons. So both are equal in magnitude, but opposite in direction. Now tell me, what is the resultant effect? What will happen? Here the net force acting on the block is 0. So if net force acting on the block is 0, this block will not move. Isn't it? But in the Newton's third law statement, what was said? For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And for this Newton's second law of motion, practically there were several applications. For example, if a swimmer is swimming in water, what he does, he pushes water in the backward direction and he moves ahead. So whatever force he is exerting, that is action. Whatever force he is experiencing because of water, it is reaction. And there is a movement. Motion is possible, right? The body is not at rest position. Though action and reaction are equal in magnitude, opposite in direction, the motion is possible, isn't it? In case of rocket, ejection of gases, with high velocity from the nozzle, from the bottom of the rocket, that's like action. Movement of rocket in the upward direction is reaction. Okay, when you shoot with a gun, what happens? The bullet releasing from the barrel, it moves ahead, that's action, and the gun experiences a kick or a movement in the backward direction, that's reaction. So like that, we do quote several examples connected with Newton's third law of motion. If both forces, action and reactions, are equal in magnitude and opposite in direction, how come this motion takes place? And here motion is not possible. Here also, both the forces are same in magnitude and opposite in direction. Okay, so try to understand the difference between this situation and whatever applications are connected with this Newton's third law of motion. In this application, both these two forces are acting on a single body, and whatever examples so far I have quoted connected with the Newton's third law of motion, in those examples, for example, if you consider swimmer example, the swimmer is exerting force on the water and water is exerting force on the swimmer. So here, whatever action reaction pairs are there, they are not acting on a single body. So that's the difference. That's why movement is possible. In examples, whatever examples we quote under the heading of Newton's third law, movement is possible because whatever action reaction pairs are there, which are equal in magnitude, opposite in direction, they are not acting on a single body. They are acting on two different bodies. But here, whatever example I am showing you here, in this example, both the forces, 2 newtons, which are equal in magnitude, opposite in direction, they are acting on the same body. So that's why movement is not possible here. Okay, so this is one small point that you need to understand connected with this Newton's third law of motion. So let us try to express whatever words are there in the statement, let us express in the mathematical form. To deal with this statement, I will imagine one situation. Let us say two bodies are colliding. Okay. Let us say, when this body collides with this one, what happens? It exerts some force. And this also exerts some force. Let us say this one, initially it is moving along this direction. This one is also moving along this direction. Let us say v1 is the velocity. Here velocity is v2. If v1 is greater than v2, what happens? Definitely both will undergo collision at some point of time because its velocity is more. Both are moving on a straight line. Okay. So when the collision occurs, what happens? This exerts some force on this one and this also exerts some force on this one. So whatever force it exerts, that you can take it as action. Whatever force this exerts, that you can take it as a reaction. Okay. So because of this, what happens? Their velocities will change. When they come in contact with each other momentarily for a short interval of time, there will be exchange of energies. Some of its kinetic energy will be transferred to this one and some of its kinetic energy will be transferred to this one. Like that, there will be exchange. There will be exchange of energies. Okay, after the collision, velocities will be different. These are very basic things that we know. Okay, in collision, such kind of things will occur. So in this situation, I'll take this body as what term? Yeah, I'll call it as first body, and I will call this as second body. 2. This is 1. Okay, so according to Newton's second law of motion, force on 1 due to 2 is equal to force on 2 due to 1. Force on 1 due to 2 is equal to force on 2 due to 1. But both are supposed to be opposite in direction. So keep one negative sign here. Write one negative sign here. So F12 is equal to minus F21. What does it mean? Force on 1 due to 2 is equal to force on 2 due to 1. Isn't it? Now, both are equal in magnitude, opposite in direction. That's what this equation indicates. This is a mathematical equation, mathematical form of Newton's third law of motion. This is action, this is reaction. Both are equal in magnitude, opposite in reaction, opposite in direction. So let us try to make use of Newton's second law of motion here. So whatever this F12 bar is there, I'll write it as dP1 bar by dt. Just now I told when this mutually action and reaction comes into play in this collision, what happens? Their velocities will change. If their velocities changes, momentums will change. So connected with this F12 bar, according to Newton's second law, what you can write? Rate of change of momentum of first body is equal to rate of change of momentum of second body minus dP2 bar by dt. Okay, so cancel these two things. This dP1, I'll write it as delta P1 bar is equal to minus delta P2 bar. If the interval during which this change is taking place, if that interval is significantly high, then I can write like this: delta P1 bar is equal to minus delta P2 bar. Here delta P1 bar is what? A change in momentum, isn't it? Change in momentum of the first body, and this is change in momentum of the second body, isn't it? So if we shuffle this equation, finally what you will get? Delta P1 bar plus delta P2 bar equal to 0. What does it mean? It means the total change in the momentum is 0. The total change in the momentum is 0. It means there is no any change in the momentum. It means there is no any change in the momentum. It means momentum is constant. Momentum is constant. And that's what the conclusion is going to become a base for the conservation of linear momentum. Conservation of linear momentum. Conservation of linear momentum, what do we talk about? Under the law of conservation of linear momentum, we talk about the linear momentum of an isolated system is constant. It doesn't change. The total linear momentum of an isolated system is constant. And this is what you can consider as a mathematical proof. So here, I have made use of two laws. One is Newton's third law, this one is Newton's second law. So with the help of these two laws, what we have come to know? We have come to know that for an isolated system, the total change in momentum is 0. It means momentum is constant. What does it imply? It implies linear momentum is constant, provided the system is supposed to be isolated system. There should not be any other external force acting. Mutually, this one can exert force on this one can be exert force on this one. These two things together called as one system. If at all, if any frictional force, everything is considered, any other resistances, resistive forces, opposing forces are considered, then the system is not going to be an isolated system. Okay, so if you imagine this one to be an isolated system, what is the consequence here? The consequence is the total change in momentum is 0. It means momentum remains constant. So whatever this third law of motion related final conclusion we have arrived at, this conclusion will take us to conservation of linear momentum. Okay, so what is the statement of law of conservation of linear momentum? In an isolated system, let me tell you this point again, isolated system in the sense there should not be any external force acting on the system. Okay, in an isolated system, the total linear momentum of the system remains constant. Okay, so now let us talk about conservation of linear momentum. Okay, regarding this third law, what points you have to remember? You have to remember points like, action and reaction, both are pairs and they are equal in magnitude, opposite in direction. Okay, and there are applications like swim or a rocket model you can take, or recoil of a gun. All these examples you can quote for Newton's third law of motion. Okay, so now let us proceed with the law of conservation of linear momentum. Okay, so this conclusion has given us a way to proceed with the law of conservation of linear momentum. So let us continue with this principle of conservation of linear momentum. What is this statement? According to, I'll call this as LCLM, law of conservation of linear momentum. According to law of conservation of linear momentum, the total linear momentum of an isolated system remains constant. So the total linear momentum of an isolated system in the sense there should not be any external force acting on the system. So for an isolated system, the total linear momentum remains constant. What does that mean? It means total initial momentum is equal to total final momentum. Okay, so when you take the difference between initial momentum and final momentum, it will be 0. It means there is no any change in the momentum. Initially, whatever momentum is there, finally the same momentum exists. In between, there might be changes in the velocities, but whatever it is, final total momentum will be equal to initial total momentum. Okay, so there are few applications connected with this one. Let us deal with all those applications one by one. Recoil of a gun. Recoil of a gun. I think you guys might be knowing about recoil of gun. So whenever a soldier, a cop shoots with a gun, he holds the gun firmly against his shoulder, isn't it? Why he does like that? Because whenever a bullet is shot, the moment when bullet is released from the barrel of the gun, what happens? There will be a heavy kick in the backward direction. Okay, if at all, if we cannot manage that heavy movement of the gun in the backward direction, what happens? Our bullet, whatever bullet we have shot, it will not reach the aim. Okay, continuously the gun will be moving, it shakes. We cannot hold the gun firmly, isn't it? So he has to exert some force. Regarding this one, already we have done one problem also, how much of force a machine gun firing soldier has to exert on the gun so that he can fire 3 bullets per second, something like that. We have dealt with those problems, isn't it? So he has to exert some force, isn't it? So all that you need to understand is when a bullet is fired from the gun moves in the backward direction. Okay, so that's what we call it as recoil of the gun. Recoil of the gun. Okay, so the movement of the gun in the backward direction when the bullet is released from the barrel, that is called as recoil. So there are questions connected with the recoil velocity of the gun. Recoil velocity of the gun. So let us try to understand the theory behind this recoil of a gun. Okay, so let small m is mass of the bullet, capital M is mass of the gun, and small v is velocity of bullet, and capital V is recoil velocity. Recoil velocity of gun. So these are the parameters that we, with which we are going to start. So initially, before the bullet was shot from the gun will be at rest position, isn't it? The gun is at rest position. So here, once the bullet is shot, what happens? The gun moves in the backward direction. It gives a kick in the backward direction. It recoils. Okay. So according to this law of conservation of linear momentum, the total momentum is supposed to be constant. What do you mean by that? P initial must be equal to P final. P initial, simply I will write it as P subscript I, is equal to P final. Since initially gun is at rest position, what is its initial momentum? Initial momentum will be 0. Gun and, inside the gun there is a bullet, or this entire system is at rest position. Okay. Once a bullet is shot, then bullet is in motion, gun is in motion. Gun recoils, bullet moves ahead, isn't it? So there will be some final momentum, and that final momentum, how it can be written? Momentum of the bullet plus momentum of the gun. Momentum of the bullet is equal to mass of the bullet into mass of velocity of the bullet, m into v bar. Okay, plus what about gun's momentum? Capital M into capital V. Okay, so if we shuffle this equation, what you are going to get? M capital V bar is equal to minus m small v bar, isn't it? So from here, recoil velocity of the gun can be expressed as minus m small v bar by capital M. So this is the expression for recoil velocity of the gun. And here this negative sign indicates that if bullet is going in one direction, in the opposite direction there will be recoil, there will be movement of the gun. Gun is moving in the backward direction. That's what this negative sign signifies. Okay, and look at this equation carefully. Here this V, if you consider the magnitude, V can be written as just mv by m. Okay, m small v by capital M. So this recoil velocity of the gun is inversely proportional to mass of the gun. Mass of the gun. So heavier the mass of the gun, recoil velocity will be less. If mass of the gun is extremely large, then there won't be any movement in the backward direction. Hardly there won't be any movement. Okay, so this has a connection with the firing skills of a soldier. Whenever a soldier fires, if at all, if he is using AK-47, for AK-47, just behind the barrel, okay, there will be a small arrangement that can be pressed against the shoulder. Okay, we can hold the gun by pressing against the shoulder. The soldier, he holds the gun firmly against his shoulder such that what is happening, he is including his body's mass also into the gun. If the soldier is holding the gun firmly against his shoulder, what he is trying to do, he is actually trying to add his mass his body mass to the gun's mass. Now see how much overall mass will be? Very large, right? If the overall mass is very large, recoil velocity will be very small. So if he doesn't hold firmly against his shoulder, what happens? The moment when bullet releases, the gun will move in the backward direction, or it may fall down, isn't it? So when he is holding the gun against his shoulder firmly, what actually he is doing? He is actually bringing his entire body's mass in touch with the gun. Okay, so because of that, what happens? The effective mass increases and recoil velocity decreases. So that's how these firing things can be handled. Guns can be handled. Okay, so now let us proceed with one more small application. Let us say there is a block of mass capital M. A bullet is shot like this. Its mass is M. Let us say it's moving with a velocity small v. What happens if this is a wooden block? Let us say if the velocity is sufficiently large and the block of mass is having sufficient thickness, then what happens after penetrating little deep into the block? It comes to rest position. Let us say a bullet has come to rest position somewhere here inside the block. Now the block is on this smooth floor. This floor is smooth. There is no any friction. If there is a friction, what happens? I cannot talk about a conservation of linear momentum. It won't be isolated system anymore. Okay, so I will consider a smooth surface on which a block is in rest position. Smooth surface. So here, once the bullet touches the block, what happens? The block starts moving. It starts sliding, and bullet has embedded. It got embedded into the block, and bullet and this block together they are moving. They will move, isn't it? So that's what happens. So let us say both are moving with a velocity equal to capital V. Both are moving with a velocity equal to capital V. Okay. So this is an isolated system now. So according to law of conservation of linear momentum, total initial momentum Pi bar is equal to total final momentum. Initially block is at rest position, so its momentum is 0. But this bullet is in motion. So bullet's momentum is m into small v bar is equal to final momentum. These two things, bullet and the block of mass, together they are moving with a velocity v. The bullet is inside the block now. Okay, together they are moving with a velocity capital V. So now what is the total mass which is having a velocity equal to capital V? M plus small m is moving with a velocity v. So this is the final momentum. This is the final momentum. So here, if you are interested to find out with what velocity this system of block and bullet are moving, then this can be written as v bar is equal to mv bar by m plus m. That's how you can write. And there is no any negative sign here because both are moving in the same direction. Bullet got penetrated into this block, and the bullet block mass system is also moving in the same direction. There is no any change in the direction. Unlike in the case of recoil of a gun, bullet is moving in one direction, the gun is recoiling, gun is moving in the backward direction, isn't it? So this is how you can find out the velocity. Okay, so let us talk about one more application. See here, let us say a boy is standing in a boat. The boat is somewhere here. Okay. The boy is here. He is standing on the boat. Okay. Before I proceed with this one, let us talk about a few things. I think some of you might be having already experience with these kind of things. If you have ever traveled in a boat, in parks, we have this facility of boating. So when you step into the boat, what happens? There will be a movement of the boat. If you walk in the boat from one end to the other end, what happens? The boat will move in the backward direction because it is on the water, right? So it experiences a push in the backward direction, so it moves. If you are walking from one end to the other end, isn't it? So this is what happens. So let us talk about this one. Here, boat and this boy together, you can treat this as a single system, isolated system. Like mass of the boat is capital M, mass of the boy is small m. Mass of the boy is small m. Now this boy, let us say he started walking in this direction with a velocity equal to small v. Now, according to our analysis, whatever analysis I have made, what do you expect? You expect this boat to move in the backward direction, isn't it? So, let us say finally, this is the position of the boat and the boy has come up to here. Okay, from this end, he has come up to here and boat has moved in the backward direction. Let us say the boat has moved a distance equal to d in the backward direction with a velocity equal to capital V. Here when the boat is moving in the backward direction, it's not only the boat, the person who is walking on the boat, he is also moving in the backward direction because he is on the boat. No, if boat is moving, since he is on that boat, he too will, he too will move in the backward direction, isn't it? But with respect to boat, if someone is observing from the boat, in which direction this person is moving towards left. But person and the boat together, they have moved in the right side, towards this direction. Let us say the person has walked a distance equal to, let the boy, the boy has walked a distance equal to s, and boat has undergone a displacement equal to how much? D. Okay. So this is the situation. Boy's velocity is small v. The boat and boy's velocity together in the backward direction is capital V. Okay. So now let us talk about conservation of linear momentum. As I said, this is an isolated system. I will assume like that. This is an isolated system. So according to law of conservation of linear momentum, LCLM, total initial momentum Pi is equal to total final momentum, isn't it? What is the total initial momentum? Here, both boy and boat are at rest position initially. When the boy has, is not moving, both are at rest position. So initial momentum is 0. What is the final momentum? The boy is having a momentum equal to mv bar, isn't it? And the boat and boy together, they were having a momentum equal to m plus m into v bar, isn't it? So let us shuffle this equation. You will have m plus m v bar is equal to minus m v bar, or this can be written as m plus m. This v bar can be written as d by t. Let us say he has taken a time equal to t, so I'll write it as d by t minus m into this v bar can be written as how much distance the boy has moved, s, in the same time, right? So s by t, tt gets cancelled. Therefore, distance through which the boat has moved is equal to minus ms by m plus m. So in this way, you can find out a distance, by which the boat will move in the backward direction. And if you observe this equation here, we have a negative sign. That negative sign indicates that if boy is moving in one direction, boat plus boy system is moving in the opposite direction. That's what you can understand from that equation, isn't it? So this is one application. Let us talk about one more application. Explosion of bomb. Explosion of bomb. Let bomb is at rest and it exploded into two pieces. Let us say somewhere here one bomb is present. Let us say its mass is m. After the explosion, let us say it is converted into m1 mass, m2 mass. Let its velocity is v1, its velocity is v2. Initially, what is the velocity of the bomb? Bomb is at rest position, so initial velocity is 0. Initial momentum will be 0. But after the explosion, what has happened? It was divided into two pieces, and those two pieces were moving with velocities v1 and v2. Their masses were m1 and m2. Okay, so let us try to apply conservation of linear momentum here. And before going with the application of law of conservation of linear momentum, first try to understand whether this system is isolated system or not. Yes, it is isolated system, because whatever explosion occurs, it doesn't occur because you go and you will hit the bomb with a hammer. You don't apply any external force, isn't it? So explosion of the bomb will be because of internal force. Whatever some chemical reactions occurs inside the bomb, because of that what happens? There will be boom, explosion will be there, isn't it? So whatever this explosion is taking place, that is purely because of internal forces. Okay, so this system can be treated as what? Isolated system. It can be treated as isolated system. So if that is the situation, according to LCLM, P initial is equal to P final. P initial is what? 0. Initially bomb is at rest position, so its momentum is 0. Final momentum, one piece mass is m1, its velocity is v1, v1 bar plus m2 v2 bar. If we shuffle this equation, what do we get? m1 v1 bar is equal to minus m2 v2 bar. This negative sign indicates that both the pieces will move in the opposite direction. It doesn't matter whether m1 is very small when compared to m2 or m2 is very small when compared to m1. If the bomb, which is at rest position, explodes into two pieces, always those two pieces will move in opposite directions. Okay, but it is not required that always it has to explode into two pieces. In fact, practically when a bomb is exploded, it will be divided into several fragments. You cannot count. Okay. Just for application purpose, we are going with this with such kind of assumptions. Now I will continue with one more assumption. That is also connected with the explosion of bomb only. Let the bomb is exploded into three pieces. Into three pieces. If this is the situation, let us say those three pieces, initially it is at rest position, so momentum is 0. Okay, P initial is 0. Okay. Finally, those three pieces masses, let us say m1, m2, m3, corresponding velocities, let us say v1, v2, v3. Okay. So according to law of conservation of linear momentum, P initial bar is equal to P final bar, isn't it? According to law of conservation of linear momentum. So what is the initial momentum here? 0, because bomb is at rest position. And the final momentum is what? P1 bar plus P2 bar plus P3 bar. That's what you can write. And if you shuffle that equation, what you will get? P1 bar plus P2 bar is equal to minus P3 bar. Minus P3 bar. This equation can be understood in this way. Here you are adding two vectors, no? P1 bar plus P2 bar. So the resultant of these two vectors is exactly equal and opposite to P3. This negative sign indicates that the resultant of these two is equal in magnitude with this P3 and opposite in direction. Okay, so let me draw one diagram here. Let us say this represents P1 bar. Let us say this represents P2 bar. Let us say this is the resultant of these two. What is that? P1 bar plus P2 bar. Exactly opposite to this one. What will exist? P3 bar exists. When this explosion is taking place, it has to obey this kind of journey. Those three pieces must travel like this only, according to law of conservation of linear momentum. Remember, students, law of conservation of momentum is universal. Everywhere it is valid. Everywhere it is valid. So it has to follow this kind of trend only. Okay. So according to this equation, this is the possible picture. I will take angle between these two as theta. Okay. So therefore, resultant P1 bar plus P2 bar magnitude, how it can be written? It is actually equal to P3 bar magnitude, no? So directly I will write P3 as magnitude of this one. Magnitude of this one is equal to how much? Under root P1 square plus P2 square plus 2 P1 P2 cos theta. Isn't it? Okay, so this is the magnitude according to parallelogram law of vectorization, isn't it? And if at all, if you wanted to find the angle, you can find the angle also. Okay, what is that? Tan alpha. Tan alpha is written as actually q sine theta by p plus q cos theta. Here, p is p1, q is p2. So if you wanted to write this alpha angle is required, right? Sometimes at what angle this third fragment will fly after the explosion. Like that, you can expect questions. Phi minus alpha. This is what? Pi minus alpha. Tan alpha you can find out like this. Tan alpha is equal to P2 sin theta by P1 plus P2 cos theta. And you can calculate alpha from this, and using this pi minus alpha, you can find out at what angle the third fragment of the bomb travels. Okay, so that's how applications connected with the law of conservation of linear momentum can be handled. In this session, what we have completed Newton's third law of motion and law of conservation of linear momentum and its applications. These three things were completed, and I want you to understand this fundamental connection between law of conservation of momentum and the second law, third law of Newton. Actually, the consequence of second and third law is what? Law of conservation of linear, or law of conservation of linear momentum's consequence you can take as second law or third law. Okay, so these are few important points connected with the law of conservation of linear momentum. Thank you, students. With this, I will close the session. Thank you.